Hi everyone. So we're into week 4 and we're moving right along with the class, and I just want to touch base with you and talk about what we're going to be learning this week and some of the focus areas that I think are important. Um, this week is on epidemiology, and before I just point out some of the concepts that I want you to think about as you move through the content, I want to tell you how interesting the environmental article reviews have been. I'm through about half of them, and you all have selected just very important topics to talk about, whether it's air quality, inside or outside. Some people have chosen fracking, which is kind of a new concern in the environment that we have for what it's doing to both water quality and the stability of our ground. As you read some of the summaries on this week's discussion, take a few minutes to really explore some of the different topics that people have chosen to look at. All of you, even if it's been the same topic, have looked at it in a little bit different way. You found different information about it, and like I said, it's just been, I always enjoy reading about it. It just makes me so much more aware of what's important in our environment and how we have to protect it. So as we look into epidemiology this week, one of the core concepts is looking at the epidemiological triangle. And that's always thinking about the host, which is our patient or ourselves. We could look at ourselves that way too. The environment that they live in, and then the organism that could make them ill. One of the things that has changed a little bit about epidemiology in the last, I'd say, 10 years is we not only look at the organism as the only concept or piece in that epidemiological triangle, we could also instead consider environmental toxins instead of a bacteria or virus. And lastly, we can look at an unsafe, something in the environment that is unsafe that can cause injuries. So we have a couple of different ways of looking at, again, what can harm people or make them ill. One of the things that I did upload this weekend is a game called Outbreak at Water's Edge, and it takes about 20 minutes. I encourage you to use it. It's a lot of fun, and it gives you a very interesting way of learning about epidemiology. It is about an outbreak, and the new public health nurse, or the new nurse working for the health department, has to go out and try to figure out why a group of citizens are ill and why more and more are showing up. So it again gives you that flavor for really how the health department or health officers have to approach all of a sudden an epidemic that would develop, and go in and interview people, find out where they've been, and then go back and look at the actual environment and try to decide what's making them sick. So it's a nice way to introduce this concept. It also gives you a nice flavor for some of the roles, other roles besides a public health nurse, that are important people that work at health departments, whether they're at the county level, city, or state. The environment is so important, and a good chunk of what you're learning this week does have to do with the environment, because we know it has such an impact on all of us. Many of you this week referenced Florence Nightingale, and again, her work, and again, her emphasis on the quality of the environment and how it influenced the health of the soldiers that she worked with and cared for. Think back to the historical perspective, and Lillian Wald and Mary Brewster were at the Henry Street settlement, and they worked just tirelessly to improve the living conditions in tenements where they saw patients and family members. The other thing that I think is a real important piece is the emphasis on, and ANA came out with this in 2007, on environmental principles, and how important it is that nurses start to think about this in their daily jobs. If you're interviewing people in a hospital or agency setting, a clinic setting, really also asking them where they live, what are their living conditions, where they work, are they exposed to any kind of environmental toxins, and then also where they recreate, because again, there are always new information coming out about potential issues that we have to think about. I was watching a news program just the other day, and they were talking about a high school that was trying to choose a substance to build a new athletic field, and they were going to use a material that was made from recycled tires until a number of reports came out and said how dangerous it was, and again, it can cause respiratory problems and other kinds of illnesses in kids. So the high school principal actually stopped the project, and they chose a different kind of material to use. Also, when you go into the home, if you are doing home visits, to really look at the environment and see if your patients and their family members are being exposed to any toxins. It could be lead, it could be radon, it could be an infestation of rodents of some kind that could make them ill. So those are just very important things that nurses need to start to think about. And then finally, also to think about how important the governmental agencies are. I know the government, a lot of people are dissatisfied with the government, but please always keep in mind how important some of those agencies are that we looked at in the first week when we looked at the healthcare system in our country. Agencies like the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, that really looks at our water and our air. Do you think on a daily basis about clean water and clean air, and if it's available to you? There's a huge portion of the globe that doesn't have what's called potable water. That means water that they can safely drink without becoming ill. By and large in our country, we don't have to think about that because we have rules and regulations that take care of it. Also, the Federal Drug Administration and the U.S. Department of Agriculture all play a role in keeping the food that we eat, the medicine that we use, safe and free of contaminants. So keep that in mind. And then lastly, there is one piece on the PowerPoints this week that talks about the 4 basic environmental principles. Some of them are still true, some of them not so much. Everything is connected to everything else is absolutely still something we have to think about. We can't just think that we live in isolation. Everything we touch, everything we interact with has an impact on us. Everything has to go somewhere, absolutely. We can't just throw contaminants and chemicals out into the yard and think that they're just going to disappear. They could potentially infect or contaminate something like a well or foodstuffs that are being grown. Number 3 is not true. The solution to pollution is dilution is not true anymore. We can't be throwing things or just putting things out into the waterways. The oceans are littered with debris, and again, some of our lakes are unswimmable because of the contamination levels that have surfaced over the years. And then the last one is today's solution may be tomorrow's problem, and that is true. We really have to think about our future citizens, our family members, our children, and what kind of world we're leaving them. So, as you move through the content this week, I hope you enjoy it. I will be back in touch with all of you, if I haven't done so, in the next few days with your environmental article reviews. Please take some time and, again, make sure you're posting your summary on the discussion board from week 3 and then commenting on 2 other students' work, and take a few minutes to read through some of the summaries. They're wonderful. And then next week we will still continue with epidemiology, but we're going to be looking at communicable disease follow-up. And again, we are living it these days with the Ebola crisis, and we'll talk more about that. So you guys have a good week, and I will be in touch, and let me know if you need anything.